welcome to Mic Drop with Julia, where we get to see the person behind the title. And today I'm very happy to welcome Adam Husein, who is the head of data analytics in Supercell. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you for having me.
So I have a question for you. What's the one story from your career that makes you happy to remember it and just makes you light up?
When I was at Warner Brothers, we were there in the middle of the pandemic. And we all kind of went home thinking in March that it was going to be like 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks became 4, and 4 became 6. And pretty soon we were all wondering, are things going to come back? Film and TV production was shut down. Theaters were closed. And finally, like in June, we started to see a light when COVID protocols and authorizations started to get into place. We started to reopen production for films and TV shows. But then we were faced with the stark reality, right? Like we had a whole slate of films waiting to be shown in theaters. We'd taken them off the schedule. And we had to ask ourselves, were people ready to come back to the theater? And so our CFO, Kim Williams, had told us at the time, every crisis presents an opportunity. And so we really used the opportunity to think differently. So rather than using our old playbooks of surveys of moviegoers, there weren't any moviegoers at the time, we were really using it as an opportunity to think about what could we do differently. We started looking at everyday life, how people were returning to normal life market by market. Right? So were people going to the grocery store, were they going to malls or bars, or were they just staying home? And then we were tracking all the COVID rates and forecasting them for every single market. And we used that to create like a readiness map. We called it Project Lasso because it brought together so many different signals. This map really showed our teams market by market if people were ready, should we lean into those markets, where should we hold back? And the map kept paying dividends, right? We released our films on streaming in 2021, and that helped us figure out when we were doing both streaming and theaters at the same time, if we should lean into streaming in one market or we should lean into theatrical attendance in that market. And this is really helpful because the theaters were really hurting at the time. They didn't have much revenue come in, and we had taken this approach which brought in revenue to them. But at its core, to your question about what lights me up, it's really about taking that uncertainty and creating clarity that people can trust and decisions that our leadership could use to really drive the business.
Yeah, I remember that time. I remember exactly that, like in the beginning, in US, okay, something's happening in China, then something's happening in Italy, and then all of a sudden, okay, everything's shut down. And I had a vacation coming in Europe in April, and I'm like, yeah, by April, I'll be traveling again. And like that vacation never happened. So there was a cartoon going around at the time, what pushed you into digital transformation, and it was COVID. Because people needed reports and data. It was such an unusual situation, and it was changing so much. Markets were changing, like everything was changing.
Our time cards and our productions had to digitalize, right? Because like we didn't want to touch things anymore.
Yeah, you didn't want to touch things, you couldn't bring the reports. So a lot of digital efforts all of a sudden, now like I had the conversation with business because I was driving it for 2 years. And well, it was fine, it's fine. I get a report once a month. Now I need to see the numbers every day. That's what you were doing. Like, yes, that's exactly what I was doing. So you could see the numbers as they change every day. So yeah, that was a very interesting time. And that's a great story. Just figuring out what intelligence to bring in this completely new situation. So thank you for that. Let me ask you the next question. So if you were standing in front of the room of data management professionals, what advice would you give them?
That's a good question. I think the core thing that I find sometimes get lost in data functions is connecting our work to the impact on the company, right? So no matter what our level is, the value needs to be tied to what moves the organization forward. If you think about it as we're like a ship, everyone in the company should be rowing in the same direction and should be able to say in one sentence how your work helps the ship reach that destination. And if you can't, then you really need to have a conversation about like, am I working on the right things?
That's a huge insight. And that's one of the things that I find a lot of technical people or data people really lack, like what it is. That's how does what you do connect to what the company is trying to do? Because they can connect it to kind of immediate steps, but all the way up to the vision and business strategy, that's one of the things that I teach. I teach on the business school the other way around. This is your business strategy, and this is how it connects to data work. But also when I teach at TDWI, which is technical people, the hardest question I ask them, what's your company strategy? And that seems to be a very hard question for people to answer. So that's very, very true. Thank you for coming to my show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.